Hello, my name is Marnie Makaborski. I'm an associate trainer with Art2Ride. This is my 14-year-old Andalusian gelding, Charlie. So in this video, I do all three, the work in hand, the lunging, and the riding. I have to admit, I don't always do the work in hand when I'm schooling him. Normally, I usually just go right to the lunging. So I usually only do the work in hand if I really need it. If he's really unfocused that day, too energetic, I won't just put him on the lunge line if he's acting a little too up that day, which doesn't happen often, especially at home. So here I'm just warming him up, getting him stretched out. We went right into a leg yield before there. We're going to do another one here. And then I bring him into a shoulder in. A little buggy that day, warm for October in New Jersey here. So even though he's flicking his head around a little bit and chasing flies, the rhythm didn't change all that much. Switch direction here. He wasn't really paying attention to me. And I would like to get him stretched lower. There's always room for improvement, but you saw when I do take up contact, he pretty much goes right into a stretch. Both when I do the work in hand and in the lunge. On the lunge line, he really gets it nice right off the bat. Leg yield here. Which is nice, no loss of rhythm. Here I lose the contact with the inside rein there. I think I just gave him a little tap for more activity, and he got confused as to what exactly I wanted. So I just pick up both contact, and then he stretches down into it and relaxes. Here we'll go into shoulder in. A little too much outside rein there. He shook his head, lost his balance, came in. You can see it when I do take outside rein contact, that's when his hind end swings to the outside a little bit. So he is getting much better with stepping up into the outside rein. And then we go into another leg yield here, which isn't so great. It was more like he was just walking on a diagonal. Fixed it a little bit there. So good enough start for me with the walk in hand. Like I said, I don't do it so much anymore. This is what I will usually start with lunging every time I ride, unless been riding him consistently, day after day through the weeks. Then I could hop right on sometimes and just ride if it's been going well. But unfortunately, I don't always get to ride him. I have 2 horses as well, so I don't get to ride him every day. So if there's a break, a day or 2 in between rides, I definitely lunge first just to get him loosened up, relaxed, stretch his muscles. But you could see he goes right into a nice stretch as soon as I put him on the line. Starts off a bit inconsistent. He always has to get some coughing out once we start working. So that's what you saw there. He's really developed a nice rhythm on the lunge line. He consistently steps under himself. He does get a little racy once in a while. This isn't too bad here. Once in a while on part of the circle, you'll see it just get a little too fast. But he's bending much better. I think in our previous video from last year, you could tell that he really wasn't bending. He wasn't yielding away from me with his hindquarters yet. But he's starting to be in much better balance on the lunge line now. And that's getting better. There he gets a little racy. Could still always be deeper. I probably could have gotten a little closer too, just to help him be more consistent in that stretch. You see, he kind of pops up and down a little bit, but you'll see as we get going, it gets more consistent. And I did ask for the canter there, which in hindsight, looking at this video, I probably should have let him warm up a little bit more. But that's okay. I just send him forward when he does that. He's gotten better at the canter, lunging. He can stretch down a little bit more. He can hold his canter longer. That was a little sloppy there. I think we go again though. But we get a little bit better trot out of it. That's nice. It slowed down a little bit. Deeper strides, a little more consistent. So we try again. Much better depart. So of course still room for improvement, but little by little he's getting there. And of course some days are better than others. That's getting better there. Even his down transitions are looking much better. He can stay, balance himself a little bit more. Remember when we started, he would just fall into his front end and just drop onto his forehand to So it's such a nice feeling to feel your horse kind of tuck its hind end under you for those upward transitions and downward transitions. You really feel the hind end working. We'll switch direction here. And this way he gets better and deeper in his stretch, a little more consistent and steady in his frame. So the longer we go here, the better he looks. Nice walk stretch. Good rhythm, good activity. So already starting a little slower and a little deeper this trot here. I love that his nose is still poked out in front of him. He had the problem with curling over a lot, so, and he still does when I mounted. But at 14 years old, you know, he's had a lot of bad riding, so it's taking a little while to fix all these problems. That's nice there. Much better trot this direction. And you'll see as a result of that, our departs are a lot smoother as well. He still raises his head for it, but again, much better there. He gets nice and deep, the canter. Still just building strength and top line. Huge improvement from last year. I don't even think I cantered him mounted last year. We did a little bit on the lunge line, but he couldn't even stretch at all, so we didn't do much of it. So this is big improvements for him. Down to a nice trot there, and that's where we end it. That direction was beautiful. Here's our Piaffe work. I feel him anticipating it here, and you know, he's not connected to me, he's not stretching yet, so we just walk past the fence line and keep going. He knows that's where we usually do Piaffe, so he's anticipating what's going to happen here. So what we've been working on is really just me moving him forward. I had to go back a little bit. He started to get too vertical. Well, like you saw in the picture on the fans and followers page, he'd like to go up in the air. So I'm really focusing on just moving him forward, moving him forward. He's still trying to find his rhythm, obviously, with his legs. But I really want him to understand that it's a forward movement first. So we've just been focusing on that, taking a step back a little bit and slowing it down and just little steps forward. So here we start our mounted work. You can see I get right on and he stretches down pretty nicely. There he goes there. That's probably where I'd want him to be all the time. But you'll see through this ride, he does like to go behind the vertical and curl back a little bit. So it's a little challenging to get his nose poked out and forward. And as he develops more strength through his top line, that will hopefully become a lot easier for him to do. And I'm still just establishing contact. Even though he wants to curl back a little bit, I can't let him get away from the contact when he does that. You'll see throughout this ride, I really need to get my arms and my hands out in front of me more. I have a tendency to bring them back behind my elbows come too far back behind me. And that doesn't help his curling over. Even though I do have a light contact on his mouth, I still need to bring it forward and up and try to get him to open his throat latch a little bit more. So I put him into a shoulder 4 here, just getting him into my outside rein so I can establish a little bit better contact. And then seeing if I could just let him out centimeter by centimeter by him taking the contact there, which, you know, he doesn't really respond. So I'm going to go back and do a leg yield here. Which is pretty nice, doesn't lose the rhythm. A little bit of a crossover. Guess my camera guy wasn't paying attention. Could have zoomed in a little bit better. I'm going to a leg yield here. I think he keeps nice open strides, doesn't change rhythm. That helped his stretch a little bit more. That's kind of what I was waiting for. Again, need to be bringing my shoulders back, which Will always tells me in the clinics, and my yoga teacher tells me as well all the time, so I know that's an issue. We're going to come up center line, change rein here. Still making nice, deep, long strides. That we could be stretched out a bit more. I do play with the working frame and stretching him out throughout this ride, just trying to get him to want to stretch down deeper. But he's just a very sensitive horse, so I have to, you know, I'm constantly just playing with little bit by little bit to get him out. He just likes to evade my hands and my contact by curling under. And everything is just it's so subtle with him. Another leg yield. And that was okay. Of course, I'd like to see him stretch deeper and get more in front of the vertical. And here we go into our trot work. Kind of fell forward a little bit through that transition. So good activity in the trot here. Just working on getting him in my contact and wanting him to stretch down. Especially in that transition, I should have brought my shoulders back. And still here. Could be bringing them back a little bit further, bringing my hands out and in front of me, but keeping the contact. Like that a little bit. You'll see the deeper he goes, the deeper stretch he gets into, the more his hocks will start to cycle and create more of a circle. He's pretty straight-legged, so he doesn't have a lot of flexion in his hind. But it definitely has gotten better. There's a little bit of a bounce to it now. Leg yield here. Speeds up a little bit into it, but the angle was good. He sometimes overflexes, so that is keeping his nose in between his shoulder blades there. That looked nice. Another one here. Keeps the rhythm pretty good. It should look effortless. So, you know, if there's a lot of movement going on between the rider and the horse, you know something's not going right. His shoulder and that got a little too overbent there. That ended nicely. Those last couple strides ended really nice right before we turned. You will see me test that he's truly getting into my outside rein when I do these leg yields or shoulder in. So I will let my inside rein gap a little bit to be positive that he is truly stepping up into my outside rein. Oh, our first sitting show, that nobody saw that, right? That was horrible. That was better there. Good. And as he started coming up a little bit, I started posting. So he can keep it a few strides and stretch down into it and even come up under me. I just started to be able to feel him to really push up. When I sat, he would push up and even get deeper. It's an amazing feeling rather than them just hollowing out. He's finally, and that's a nice stretch there. It's almost like he's starting to enjoy me sitting on him. You can really feel him change and want to get under me to help me out. It's really nice. Even this direction, we do sitting trot this direction, it got even better. Really fun to ride, especially I hate doing the sitting trot, but when it's starting to feel like that, it's fun to ride. And I use it as an exercise. It's going to help him build back muscle strength. I think I bring him up into a little bit of a working frame here. And sit. Oh, one of the horses yelled for him. I don't know, that's why he popped up there. That's a good sitting trot there. You wouldn't even known I sat on him if you weren't looking at me and just watching his strides. Bring him up into a working frame here, which is nice. He's kept the tempo. Into a leg yield. So still having him in a working frame, gets a little bit behind vertical. And then do the leg yield and let him out. There we go. That's what I was kind of hoping for the whole time, just to completely release and let go. Nice stretch out. I was just following him up. My hands widen and they raise up in front of me, so that was a good correction on my part. So not much of a difference in strides between his working frame and letting him out in the stretch, which is a sign that he is working over his back in both frames, which is awesome. So bringing him up into the working frame there he starts to curl back a little too much, especially here, and slow down. So I should have let him out a little bit sooner. And you could see as soon as I do, his strides lengthen again. So coming up next, I have this recaps of what he looks like 2 years ago. So this is 2015. You can see the huge dip behind the saddle, how irregular his walk steps are, the overdeveloped underside. This is 2016. This is our submission from last year. And he still has the dip behind his saddle. But you can see he's more behind the vertical in that submission. And here we are back at 2017. Huge difference. Stretching deeper, a little more in front of the vertical, stepping under. He still has a little bit of a dip behind the saddle, and he still wants to curl behind a little bit. But as you could see, it is an improvement from last year. And sometimes it's so hard to tell if your horses are improving or not, because it's not always an aha moment and then they finally get it. It's like it can take a while. So going back and looking at previous years, you can really see that, oh wow, they really did make a huge difference, and they definitely are progressing and building, and so it's fun to see. It's nice that Will makes us do these things. I would never have done it before. So here we go into a canter. He's finally starting to be able to stretch with me on top of him. He curls up there, and sometimes I just, again, have to follow it, where even if he goes behind vertical, I have to follow it there, and then just send him on a little bit and release and give with what he's willing to take. So not steady, but he gets pretty low. He's doing nicer here than he did on the lunge line. And I'm really not doing much. I'm just following the contact, asking him to go forward when he comes up, but I'm not doing a whole lot to get him into the stretch. I'm just following the contact and letting him take it. So he does canter still a little crooked, he's not stepping under himself in the canter. So step by step, I'm just letting him get comfortable with the canter in the stretch first. And then once he gets really good at that, we'll start working on, manipulating his hind end a little bit to better balance and step under himself. So we have him in a working frame first, then I ask for the depart. And here I'm just holding and waiting with a nice contact, waiting for him to want to give. There it is. And then I just follow it down. Being conscious of keeping my shoulders back. And that's nice there. A little more difficult for him this way. So we get that one last little stretch, and then we stop. And that's about it for our session. I just cool him out with a walk. Again, this is Marnie Makaborski. Thanks for watching.